Okay, moving on to the officers' reports. I'd like to recognize Secretary Jane Lane for the purposes of giving her report.
Good morning. My report is are the minutes of the last annual meeting, which was January 27, 2018, held at Bow High School, and it's the second sheet in this package. If anybody has any questions, I will attempt to answer them. Otherwise,
Okay, are there any questions for Secretary Lane? Is there a motion to accept the Secretary's report? Is there a second? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Jane. Moving on, I'd like to recognize Treasurer Rob Casper for the purposes of the Treasurer's report.
Good morning.
good morning.
So, the good news. 2017 audit is complete, just pending my signature. We have no issues with the audits. For 2018, the good news was that we budgeted $1.2 million, and we actually raised 1.4, and that's for all three accounts, and we spent basically $1.4 million.
You raised some more.
Thank you. So we need it. That's what I'm getting to. Of that 1.4 million, about 1.2 million, at least by my calculations, was spent on political activity, either on the federal or the state level. And I'm including the payroll for all our staff there. And of course, a lot of the staff is paid for by the RNC. Okay, that's the Victory Fund. They also help with the federal side of this. So within our state level, we raised about $550,000 or so. And of that, 75% of it went out for political activity. I'm talking about mailings, door knocking, phone calling, paying for our staff. And we only have 2 staff members, by the way. 2 paid staff members at the state level. Ray Buckley and the Democrats have 16 to 18 paid staff members. So keep that in mind as we go through it. So on the bad side, that's part of the bad news, is that we really don't have a large staff here. Some people say it's good news, but it's the bad news actually in terms of trying to get us organized at the state level. The other part is that with this little bit amount of money that we're spending, and I'll give you a comparison to the Democrats here in a bit, we basically were running out of money in May or June of this year, election year. We basically were out of money and we were actually in debt. We had bills that we couldn't pay. Now, at that point, we were about $71,000 in debt, actually. I guess I'm getting some pie charts now. I've sort of gone past those, okay? So we can go ahead and take down the pie charts. Thank God for Jim Morgan. At that point, he and Wayne stepped forward. He came up with a great fundraising plan. He got us back into the black, almost. At the end of this month, we'll still have about $10,000 in the bank, but we still have about $16,000 in lawyer fees, actually lawyer bills to pay off, because we were sued, as you might remember, by Andy Martin. Even though there wasn't much to the lawsuit, it ended up getting thrown out of court. Of course, you know what happens. You still have to go to court, you still have to file the papers, you still have to go through the process. So, that's the really bad news. At the end of this month, we're basically down to $10,000. Thank God we're raising some money here today. Thank goodness for the governor, and actually that was his personal check, by the way, done not out of his political action committee. So, but what I'm here to tell you today too is that basically we're being outspent, out-organized, and out-messaged here in the state of New Hampshire. You know, I don't know if anybody takes a look at what the Josiah Bartlett comes up with in terms of their analysis of what goes on here in the state. But just to kind of reiterate a recent article they put out in November, so taking us through the October spending period, the Democrats basically had outspent us in the 2018 election cycle by $3 million. And we're talking hard money now. We're talking about their actual committees that are in the state, their PACs, their Senate PAC, their House PAC, their state committee. I'm not talking about the soft money from outside, you know, from the Act Blues of the world, people like that. They had outspent us in hard money here by over $3 million. So they spent basically 4.09 million. We'd spent about 1.1 million at that point. Now, it gets worse, actually, because that's at the state level, right? The PAC level, at the state level. Our town committees and local committees were outspent 10 to 1. 10 to 1. 359,000 to 34,000 in the reports that are given to the Secretary of State's office. And what does it mean? It means basically, how many reports were they giving? They were turning in 30 town or local committee reports. We had 5. 5 for the entire state of New Hampshire that were actually reporting expenditures on a local level. So, are we out organized? You bet we are. You know, I'm the state treasurer, lifelong Republican, lived in Walpole for the past 20 years. During this last election cycle, I had Democrat teams come to my house, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Why were they coming? Because I have 2 daughters who are in the military. One of them's a major in the Army, one of them's a lieutenant in the Navy. And but they're undeclared, right? They're still using our house as their home. They're undeclared. So they were coming there trying to find my daughters to try to convince them that they should vote for Democrats. Even though they knew who I was. Okay? Because these are local people. I knew them. You know, I coached their kids in sports and sporting events and stuff. I mean, they're so much better organized on a local level than we are. It's pathetic. So what we really need to do here, we really need to think really hard. And Fred was getting at it. Every speaker so far has been getting at it. You know, it's great that we come to this meeting. And it's great that you vote for a new chair and a new vice chair. Nobody wanted to run for treasurer. Except for me. But basically because I don't have a lot of money to count. But but it's really up to you to go back out from here and to figure out how you're going to organize your town. We have all the information at the state. We've spent a great deal of money, both on the national level and the state level, to give you a great database of who the Republicans are that are out there, who's voted 4 times in a row, who's voted 3 times in a row, 2 times in a row, 1 time in a row. You can quickly identify the Republicans in your town, but it's up to you to go and find 9 others and try to organize a committee there and actually do something in that town and make sure that you do get the Republicans in your town to the polls, but more importantly, that you, as Governor Sanu used to say, you talk to the other people in your town, the undeclared, the undecideds, and try to convince them that maybe this time they should pull the lever for Republicans. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Rob did an excellent job, a very difficult job. In some ways, a very difficult job because you had to figure out how we were going to meet our financial expenses, but it was an easy job in some ways because there wasn't that much money to keep track of. So I guess it works both ways. And I would like to recognize Jim Morgan, who was on the other side of this. Bob keeps track of the money, but Jim was in charge of raising it, which is a lot more difficult. Not that either job is easy. So, Finance Chairman Jim Morgan.
Well, it's nice to get up here and be able to take credit for that $5,000 check. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, the E-Board. And most of all, thank you, each of you, for the amazing support of the Republican Party. In addition to Finance Chair, I'm the Chairman of the Derry Town Council, and I'm newly elected the Chairman of the Log Cabin Republican. Thank you. You can say I believe in this party and my fellow Republicans. This team was handed a mountain to climb when I joined last April. And we climbed it because we are a team, and we do not take lightly the team we are. Ronald Reagan once said, if we ever forget that we're one nation under God, we will be one nation gone under. This party will never go under. This party will lead, this party will fight, and this party will win. Today, this party and this state must work together. We must unite, we must grow, we must engage, and we must welcome new Republicans to stop the Democrats and the Ray Buckley machine. We must regain the Senate. We must regain the House. We must regain the Executive Council, and we must regain our 4 seats in Washington, D.C. We will turn this state back to red. I am done with purple, and I'm sure as hell not going blue. But to make that happen, we all need to have skin in the game. And this is where the finance chair part comes in. Every single one of us in here donates $300 tomorrow. The New Hampshire State Party has enough money to open its doors for the entire year. Just $300. That money is important. It's important to keep our party moving, and it's important to fight that Ray Buckley machine. I look forward to working harder. I look forward to putting the Democrats back into the minority in 2020 and continuing the 603 story of prosperity. Do not ever take for granted our party or the work needed to be successful. Thank you all for the kindness and support as your finance chair. Let's focus and kick the crap out of the Democrats in 2020.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Moving on, our National Committee man and our National Committee woman could not be with us here this morning. As many of you know, the RNC meeting, the meeting of the RNC is, I believe they wrapped up yesterday, but given travel time and the availability of flights between Albuquerque, New Mexico and Boston, Juliana especially could not get back in time. You have letters from both of them under the officer report packet that you should have gotten when you were credentialed. I can tell you that serving on the RNC is an honor, but it's also expensive to fly to all these meetings. It's something you do at your own expense. The hotels, the travel, miscellaneous other things, and we owe Steve and Juliana an incredible debt of gratitude, not only just for the fact that they put that kind of time and money in, but also they serve on different committees. Juliana was on the site selection committee for the convention that's coming up this in 2020. Steve has been on the rules committee over the years. He's been on the presidential debate committee. New Hampshire is well thought of by both Chairman McDaniel and was well thought of by Chairman Priebus. And on national committee members, that works well to our advantage, not only in terms of positioning with the RNC, in terms of how we're treated at conventions and meetings, but also obviously in terms of the calendar for the primary and other things and getting resources. The RNC was very helpful, not only with the Victory program this year, which they always are, but also after I became chairman, I met with Chairman McDaniel in Austin, Texas, and was able to secure $30,000 as part of the effort we needed to get back into solvency. So anyway, Steve and Juliana are working hard for us. The main reason they're not here is because of the RNC meeting this past week. They've been out doing their jobs. And I'll just leave these reports for your reading, but both of them give a detailed account of what they've been up to. With that, I would like to recognize the Vice Chairman of the Republican State Committee, Ellen Glassman.
Good morning. What a spirited crowd today. This is great. I'm really enthusiastic about this. First of all, I'd just like to add one other thing to what Wayne commented about Juliana and Steve, our National Committee man and committee woman. They are doing everything they can to make sure that our first in the nation primary stays right here in New Hampshire. They have worked so hard. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for being here to hear the credentials report indicating that we had over 76% of you here, and I suspect that even more people came in after that time. It was a great turnout, and it's testimony to the fact that all of you are on board for making our election 2 years from now the election that we want to remember, as opposed to the one that we just had. So thank you for all of your work. I'd like to talk a little bit about how I became the vice chair of the party, a rather sudden a turn of events when on July 1st, Wayne McDonald became the chairman, and a few weeks later, I decided to run for vice chairman, and I was elected by the executive committee, and I thank them all for electing me. My goal was to simply try to work with our chairman, who had now been thrown into a position of 6 months of time, even though he still had a full-time job, to try to help him in any way that I could. So as a result of that, I did work hard. I hope I helped him. I believe I did. I was going to various meetings around the state. He and I would talk and say, well, okay, there are 3 different events going on this evening. Who's going to go to which one? And we would divvy that up to make sure that the NH GOP was represented at as many events as we could possibly do. I've also been involved in caucuses for the state committee member elections. I went over to Grafton, to Carroll, to the Concord Committee, to Belknap. I also worked with the Merrimack County people, even though I wasn't able to get to their caucus because it was the same evening as another one. But it's been a pleasure to be able to meet with so many different committees in this short 6-month period of time. I also worked very hard on the Secretary of State election for Bill Gardner, and as you know, that was a must-win situation. And although it was only by, I believe, 4 votes that Bill Gardner won, at least we got him back in the driver's seat, which is so important when you hear about some of the bills that the Democrats are putting forward right now. It's appalling to see some of these bills. I also assisted with the House Republican caucus election, where Dick Hinch was elected our House Republican leader, as well as our Sergeant at Arms and our clerk were elected, and Wayne and I worked on that together. I attended the Josiah Bartlett dinner, which was a fantastic event this year. The speaker there was, I believe it's Josh Goldberg. He was an outstanding speaker. I think I've got the wrong first name. I'm sorry. Jonah Goldberg. Thank you, JP. I'd like to say that I also did some work on fundraising during this time, because honestly, that is one of the most important jobs of the vice chairman, is fundraising here in New Hampshire. We were somewhat successful with some of that fundraising as far as some of the things that I was involved in, but I give much more of that credit to Wayne McDonald and Jim Morgan for getting us out of the hole that we found we were in. So thank you. The next to the last thing I'd like to say is I'd like to bring some attention to our staffers, Todd Chewing and Joe Sweeney. They did an outstanding job. And there was something that I learned once I became vice chairman. I learned how much they have on their plates and have had on their plates for this whole time, doing the work of probably 4 or 5 people, and there were only 2 of them. We also had Carrie Bedard, who helped out as well with our financial reports, so I thank her as well. The very last thing I'd like to say is, yes, we will be having a new vice chairman. We have 2 candidates who are running today, and I want to offer my assistance to whomever it is who succeeds in the election today, to work with them, to guide them, give them a little bit of information that I've gleaned from my 6 months as the vice chair, to make sure that we can really kick off our 2020 campaign at running full speed ahead. So thank you all very much for your support, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.
Thank you, Alan. We adjust this microphone. He's a short guy. Not his fault. Not his fault. I'm short compared to some people too, so it's my fault.
Croc TV.